Greetings, this is your critique for Project 1. I'll probably do 3 or 4 people on here, keep this video 15, 20 minutes at the most, 20 minutes. And so we will start with you here, Kirby. We'll look at your Project 1, and then a Project 2, that'll be later. Alright, so we're looking at aperture. With this project, kind of enjoyed the playfulness of these images. I think the one that I most reacted to, I don't remember if it was it this one? Yeah, this one. I think I maybe even commented on it earlier. Or maybe, yeah, there I am. Yeah, so this image I think has a really nice impact to it. You know, this close cropped, zoomed in. There's nice light on the figure, intensity in the gaze. The old phone. I like how the gun is this very secondary, tertiary sort of visual element that's not overt, and it adds certainly a sinister feel to it, a seriousness to it, and you know, almost gangster or hitman sort of thing. But because you don't look impassioned, it looks more like business. So really enjoy this photograph. Really enjoy the construct and the character and everything. And I think it's well done. And you know, there's not always a lot to say with a good photograph. You know, technically it's well executed, light's good, etc., etc., etc. So let's move on and see what else we have here. Let's look at this one where we get a little bit wider angle, and we also have a grayscale version of it. So. And it's interesting the difference between these two because we also looks like playing with contrast. And here, you know, we see the texture of the face, the gun, the colorfulness, this almost like a worm's eye view looking up at you. This one, you know, the face is more hidden, the gun is hidden, darker, exit, high contrast, light. I'm not really sure which one I like better. I like them both. Yeah, and like you know, Christy says, has a very noir feel to it. Certainly here, I would agree with that. Though you know, there's something about the color that resonates as well. So, particularly if we look at it in conjunction with the previous image we looked at and talked about, you know, that one also might make a good black and white too. So, you probably want to maintain consistency if this were a portfolio of work, which they could be because I think this is a good photograph. This is a good photograph. They've cropped it down. I actually kind of like the little bit longer format of this. Curious as to why you cropped it. Maybe when you went to grayscale, it needed that focus. I'm not sure, but yeah, curious to see that. The grayscale gets actually a little gritty and grainy, which maybe isn't a bad thing though, because with that film noir feel, it kind of adds to the content of the image. So, you know, this one. It's not bad, but you know we have so many of these on the phone. I don't know how many we need, and that one we looked at earlier is so great. I think it's going to be difficult to top, but it is interesting to look at. I like to see this exploration that you're sharing with me because you know it really shows the time and effort and tried different things in there. So that's you know in a sense what these projects are more about than anything else is just trying to understand aperture and shutter speed or exhibit your understanding of that. And you're certainly doing that here with your f1.8 real narrow depth of field. And there is something interesting about you being out of focus in this, the phone and the hand with just this little bit of gun being in there, which kind of, you know, works. But I think that previous image, you know, as I said, just has it all. And then, you know, this image, you know, has a intensity to it as well. Kind of similar to the previous one, you know, but you know, this whole thing feels like a scene from a movie, you know. So that's you know, and yeah, it feels you know much more cinematic than perhaps photographic, and that's not a negative criticism at all. You have a nice narrative here, which will actually be the next project. If you have looked ahead, you can maybe even build off this, create a further. But yeah, they all seem like they're from stills from a scene from a film. So, but they're interesting, they're engaging, they have a lot going for them. you know, as a body of work, we'd really need to distill them down into fewer images. I think there was almost too many here. So if we can get these down in 4 or 5, maybe 6 images the most, I think it would help. But I think also that this work just screams to be built upon. You know, I want to see more. I want to see maybe the next scene or something. Maybe you can play with that when we go to the narrative project in week 3. You could, you know, incorporate some of these images and then build them off into more images, and you know, almost that'd be an interesting way to approach a body of photographs. Is to try to present this cinematic expression in them, or maybe you have 3 different scenes, or you know, 4 walls and 4 different scenes. I never really thought in terms of presenting photographs that way, but that could be an interesting way. But these are all in one wall and one scene. Then you have another scene from this movie, quote unquote scene from this movie, on another wall, another scene. I mean, All right. Well, you've got me thinking here, Kirby. So good job. All right, let's move along and select Leslie and see what she is sharing with us. Those are interesting. Let's see what we have in the album, Aperture. Yeah, I kind of like these images of you floating in the pool. You know, there's just this interesting space and such interesting textures. I don't. It seems like it's its own body of work. Like it could go on, and we could see more of these. Each of these offers me something different. The one that you're gazing directly at the viewer, you know, and then all this nice texture in the water and the reflection of the light and the blue, green, you know, and the flowiness of the fabric that you're wearing. You know, there's just a lot to look at. And here I like to see this little bit of the water moving. And here we get a little more reflection of the trees, and I like the composition here where it's off to the right. And this one where it's zoomed in and more abstract in a sense. They're all fairly abstract images. I really like that I don't see anything else but this water and this figure in this water. I don't see the edge of the pool. You know, I don't see another figure. I don't, you know, whatever it is. I don't see lawn chairs, stuff like. I like how they're focused in just on that figure. I find those engaging. I also like this one. This has a very different feel to it, though. This feels more like a portrait. The other ones don't feel portraiture, and that's not a bad thing. You know, this is a sort of portraiture project, but covered all bases. You know, there's no criticism there. But this has a very different feel to it. It feels like a portrait. I like this image too. I like that I get this context and I get, you know, these reflections in the figure here, and a little bit of foreground information. It works. Just works in a very different way than those other images. Looking at these, here you're, you know, this one is something's going on. The white balance is off. Composition's actually pretty good. It's pretty well set up, but it's not nearly as intriguing for me as those other images. This one I like. This actually would probably fit in the project too. We're playing with shutter speed. It works here too. This is a very engaging photograph. I like the ghosty quality of this and how you're playing with the images, Leslie. And yeah, I know you're familiar with photography, and yeah, good job. This is also interesting. So I think I like the other one better. This one almost seems a little almost too playful in a sense, where it looks like you're hamming it up. I don't know, maybe not. The eyes are a little creepy here. They gaze almost like glossed over and zombie-ish. These 3 images, you know, I don't know. They could be presented together. I don't know if it would be, you know, if I put this one on the left side and go, you can have a progression from still to this to really blurry. Here, you know, this actually really, I like how you're playing with this, where you've obviously manipulated it, but I like how you're playing with one side has the color, the other side is this grayscale. This is actually really quite nice. I like how the hair overlaps in the face and figures. And I think, you know, this is a very good job. Good job, Leslie, of taking that original photograph, and you've got something great out of the camera, but you kept pushing it and making it, and you've got something even, I think, even more engaging than the original. And I like the original a lot. So, anyways, I would say good job, Leslie, for many very intriguing photographs, all a lot of variety in them. as how you're playing with them, pushing them, and expressing them. So nice diversity. We will move along. All right. Next, we're going to look at Janel's photographs. And we'll go back to the photo stream. I accidentally clicked. Find your my computer. I'm working it pretty hard here. So, all right. So let's click on albums and Project 1 aperture. And look here. We have several images to consider. A lot of good play with the aperture and depth of field. The glasses is probably the most interesting. Okay, so we have two here. We have this one and this one. And we have the same focal point, slightly different exposure in this. Now I'm looking at this all technically 0.6 through f3.4. If I go over to this one, 3.4 in 1 second, so definitely more exposure here versus here. I think I actually like the exposure better here. Like the colors seem a bit more saturated. When we overexpose, things get lighter and tend to go push towards desaturation. So I'm more engaged with this image. I like how you're using the glasses to frame this whole scene. And we have a fairly narrow depth of field, I would say, and that goes along with the wide aperture that we're looking at. But okay, all right, anyways, I like this photograph. And here you're playing well with the aperture because now we have f8, so you can see how we have this in focus and this in focus. I like I like your thoughtfulness in composing this image. And we have the books here, and then the figure here, and we can attach a lot of ideas of the books to whom you are as a person. So we start to get a sense, as a viewer, whether it's a true sense or not. You're constructing an identity with this image. I think I like the other one a little bit better, though this one's interesting too. Excuse me. Let's keep going. So we have several of these, again playing with this, and I like the cat. We get this one is, I like how the cat in the background, we have 8 full seconds, so that's a long exposure, and we have f8, so we get quite a bit in focus. You're not super sharp focus here, but you're certainly in much greater focus, so we can see the effects of aperture in this. I actually like this one with the cat. I see these multiple things here. I almost would like it if I think you probably moved. It's hard to stay perfectly still for 8 seconds. I like the composition. I think you did too. You tried many things with this composition. So I think you're playing with it in the right way. We lost the cat, and I kind of like it without the cat. I almost want to move you over just a little bit more. Though maybe I need to move the camera over just a little bit more. I want to separate you from the glass and in this space, but I also don't want to cover up the sign. I kind of like the sign. I like the reflections here. I'm paying more attention to the reflections now that the cat's gone. So they're still here with the cat, but the cat seems to take up more visual space and attention. So I kind of like, I guess, overall this one, though I'd want to maybe move a few things around. I also maybe want to crop it right here, just get rid of this stuff. I find that a little bit distracting. If I get rid of that, it keeps a little more focus on the cup and you and the sign and even the hutch back there. So, okay. All right. Well, good job, Janel. Good explorations. And we will move along here. So I think I'm going to try and squeeze one more in on this, and we'll take a look at Jessica's images. All right, Jessica's got these, and it's interesting. I don't know if you did this to your hair. You get sort of this wild look, and we're out in this nature, and this grass growing in front of you. So it has this very wild feel. It's a slightly overexposed, I would say. 1/13 of a second was probably too long. You're at f22. I don't know if you can go a little bit smaller than that. You might be able to. But I would say the exposure Why did you select, that's the question that jumps to my mind, why did you select that long exposure? Is that what your camera was telling you? See, for back here, and maybe for the grass it was necessary, but with you and the figure with this light on you, you might have muted it before you put yourself in there. Or maybe you wanted that longer exposure, because I do kind of like how the grass is moving and a little bit blurry, and you did a good job staying still. So I like everything that's going on in this image. I like, the hair and your gaze at the camera and the natural green setting and the blur. It's just that your face is just is overexposed. If we could get a little more texture in that, I think this photograph would really come together. So exposure is just slightly off. That's funny. I like the other image much more. I don't know why. Maybe it's just this one seems more. I would say selfie, but you're not looking at the camera. You're not pasting on a smile. You're looking over there. So I mean, it's not a bad composition. There's a nice balance to it with the green here and the green here and you here. And I like actually that you're looking away from the camera, not at the camera. The light coming into the lens really doesn't bother me. It almost kind of adds something when we see that refraction. So, but I don't know. All right, so this one I like, and I almost want to crop your hands off. They distract me, because what I really like is I like this green in front of your face, and I like that stark shadow that's projected onto your face, and the hands kind of distract me from that. So if I crop out the bottom just right at the chin, maybe I could even leave a little bit of the finger on there. I'm looking at the cropping right about here now. That's kind of interesting too. There's just a little too much stuff going on at the bottom. Either completely crop out the hand or just leave that one finger. I kind of like the one finger there. But I like this image, and the exposure is better. We still have a little bit of highlights that are a little blown out. That would be difficult to get in the camera, because I think we're at this point where we're beyond the camera's range of what it can capture. And that just would require a little post-processing work. But I like this photograph quite a bit, just like I like the first one. This one just needs some minor tweaks. The first one needed, some bigger shifts in exposure. So, all right, and this is the last image, I believe. I really like this composition. It feels overexposed, but it almost feels intentional, and it almost kind of works. How the colors are kind of desaturated and just too light. And I like how you kind of get lost in this scene. You almost just feel like part of the grass. And that seems to be like the message when I look at this whole album. It seems like there's this idea of your interactions with nature. And this image here, the second one we looked at, which I didn't like as much, doesn't fit into those. And the other three seem much more conceptually evolved than this image. And I like what you're doing with that. It seems like something you could build off of. I'm trying to, I kind of like this look actually in this image. But the other ones, this one, the grass isn't blown out. Here, the blown out grass and the figure mesh and merge and are harmonious. Here, you're just blown out and the grass is exposed fine. So I'm not sure what happened, what the difference is in there in the light or the exposure or what's going on. If all three of these images had that feel, this one we just need more interaction with you and the green. It just sets itself apart and doesn't quite work. I really like what's going on in all of these images. So I'm going to leave it at that and move on and do some more critiques.